floor ever discovered. That's what you're looking at here.
Amen.
That's what it is. It was created in 230 AD. It was in Israel 50 weeks ago.
Ooh.
50 weeks ago, it was in a prison in Megiddo, Israel, that was expanding. And when you move dirt in Israel, you're required to call in the authorities. And when they did, on the last day of the excavation, a prisoner at Megiddo found what is now known as the earliest Christian worship space floor known to humankind. And you are in that space today.
Wow.
None of this is a reproduction except for the communion table. I was at that prison visiting just about 5 months ago and saw the original stones, but they weigh so much to move those, you would never know, right? That those were reproductions. But everything else that you're seeing is exactly the way the floor was found about 20 years ago. It was carved into 11 pieces, negotiated for several years, and here it is, all of us to see.
Praise the
Let me
Lord.
just make a couple of points about it, and then I'll leave you to the Museum of the Bible, which is free today, thanks to our donors and board members who said that our mission, which is to invite all people, should at least include some days where there's no charge. And so we're grateful to them for that. Well, what about this floor? This took about a year to construct. This was constructed by hand, each of those tiles. Can you imagine working with hand tools to cut each of those tiles and lay them? And we know the name of the person who did it. His name was Brudius. And his name is memorialized here on the floor in ancient Greek. 3 inscriptions. One tells us who laid the tile. His name was Brudius. We also know who paid to have the tile laid. His name was Gaianus. He was a centurion. You would never see a centurion named in the same phrase as a lowly tile cutter, but something has changed.
Amen.
The entire Roman hierarchy has been thrown on us here because now there is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, centurion or tile cutter. I'm adding to Galatians 3:28, as some of you Bible experts know. But it seems as though something has shifted. That we have a hallowed man, someone who would command at least 100 men, maybe 1,000, and then a lowly tile cutter, both in the same phrase. Then we have the phrase that includes 4 women. Again, extraordinary. Remember, in ancient Rome, if you have a woman who's memorialized, what's her likely role or her history? If you have it in ancient Rome, who would she be? Who did ancient Rome venerate? Gods and goddesses, very good. So that, you may have that woman, but not 4 lay women. That's what we think we have here. The word remember, and then the name of 4 women. We don't know much about them, except it's likely that they were early Christian martyrs. Matter of fact, most of the skeptics, there are no skeptics here today. I just sense the vibe in the room. There are no skeptics here, but if you were, the skeptics say, Carlos, what I have difficulty with is that you're telling me that this was a space where people sang and worshiped. They weren't called Christians then. This is 230. What were they called? What's the 2-word phrase that was used to describe the early church? The way is correct. Very good. I like it. The way. So this group called the way were worshiping in the space. How is it possible under the persecution of Rome that so many people would be in a rather public space like this? Well, what I answer is twofold. One, they did it under the peril of their own lives. It's possible that 4 of them lost their lives as a result of their testimony of faith. But it's also possible that it was disguised. Some of you have seen these, what it may have looked like. It's on the screen there. It looked like a common home. So that if a Roman soldier were passing by, they wouldn't have known it to be a Christian worship space. No crosses on the outside, nothing like that to designate it. But it's this last inscription that's the most striking of all, because it names a 5th woman. I named 2 men and 5 women, and that was the makeup of the church around that time. That's what experts say, right? About 2/3 women. Well, this woman actually pays for that communion table. Her name is Akeptos. She is God-loving, and she says she's paid for that as a memorial to God, Jesus Christ. Those terms, to be stated together in an architectural form, this is the earliest reference to the deity of Christ or his godhood found in any original form. Let me say that again. What you're looking at here is the declaration that Jesus was God. They were worshiping him as God 100 years before the Nicene Council, where a fairly new believer, who's actually the ruler of the land, brings men together to try to resolve the issue of who is Jesus. Was he fully man and fully God? This community seemed to have already arrived at their own conclusion, and they were worshiping him as God here. That is why This is today a site where Christian pilgrims have come from all over the world just to see this, to be in this space, and to think that there was an unbroken pattern of faith from Jesus' death, somewhere around 33 to 40 AD, his death, his resurrection, and now these people who are worshiping Jesus, could they have known Mark's grandchildren, Peter's grandkids, John's uncle? Is it possible? The answer is yes. Well, I'll leave you with this last thought. One of the things we know about this floor is that these gaps that you're seeing here, this is the way the floor was found. 20 years ago, it survived 1,800 years in this form. Wow. This is the most extraordinary thing of all. When you talk to the experts, they tell you these tiny tiles, Carlos, you can go to Egypt, you can go to Israel, you can go to the Middle East, and you'll find them. They're like candy all over. You don't find them together. But this floor was purposefully covered. Under 18 to 24 inches of sand and broken pottery shards seems to imply they knew that they had to cover it. It was too dangerous to let people see whom they were worshiping and what they were doing on this floor. So they likely thought they would come back to it in 5 years or 10 when the tolerance may have grown, but instead it was buried for 1,800 years for you to see and for me to see as well. Well, thank you for letting me interrupt your afternoon for just a few moments. And all we ask is that you tell every friend and enemy and person you encounter to come to the Museum of the Bible, because you heard that our mission is simple. We invite all people to engage with the transformative power of the Bible.
Amen.
God bless you.